Hey there, BNN viewers. Get ready for a tale full of secrets and mysteries that you won't want to miss. Today's story is full of surprises. Let's begin today's interesting story. My father was once a successful businessman, a man whose confidence seemed to light up every room he entered. He had a way of commanding respect, his voice steady, and his presence magnetic. I remember watching him as a child, marveling at how he carried himself with such assurance. He was my hero, the man I aspired to be like one day. But everything changed when his business partner betrayed him. The betrayal was sudden and devastating, leaving my father financially ruined. The man who had once stood tall, shoulders squared against the world, now seemed to shrink under the weight of his despair. His confidence shattered, replaced by a hollow emptiness that seeped into every corner of our home. The atmosphere at home grew heavy, suffocating. My father's depression was like a dark cloud that never lifted, casting a shadow over our family. He became withdrawn, his once booming voice now reduced to a whisper. My mother, too, seemed to crumble under the pressure, her frustration and helplessness manifesting in constant criticism, especially directed at me. It felt as though I could do nothing right. Every misstep, every imperfect grade, every moment of hesitation was met with sharp words and disappointed sighs. My younger brother, Michael, on the other hand, was the golden child. He was academically gifted, effortlessly charming, and everything I wasn't. It was as if my parents had set up an unspoken competition between us, one I was destined to lose. They compared my achievements to Michael's constantly, and each comparison felt like a knife twisting in my chest. I tried to excel in my studies, to prove myself worthy of their love and approval, but the more I struggled, the more I felt overshadowed. The tension in our home reached a breaking point when my parents made the decision to send me to live with my uncle. They believed that by focusing on Michael's education, they could salvage something from the wreckage of our family. I remember the day they told me, their voices calm but firm, as if they were discussing something as mundane as the weather. I felt a deep sting of rejection, a pain so sharp it took my breath away. Being sent away felt like being cast aside, a decision that left me questioning my worth and my place within the family. I packed my belongings in a daze, my heart heavy with a mix of anger, sadness, and confusion. As I left the house, I glanced back at my parents, their faces unreadable, and at Michael, who seemed oblivious to the weight of what was happening. I wondered if they felt even a fraction of the hurt I was feeling. Life with my uncle and aunt was initially challenging. I was in a new environment, away from the familiar chaos of my parents' house, and it took time to adjust. My uncle was a quiet man, thoughtful and kind, while my aunt was warm and nurturing, her laughter filling the house with a sense of comfort I hadn't realized I'd been missing. They welcomed me with open arms, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being an outsider, a burden they hadn't asked for. I kept to myself at first, unsure of how to navigate this new dynamic. But slowly, as the weeks turned into months, I began to find my footing. My uncle and aunt encouraged me to pursue my passions and interests, something I hadn't experienced in a long time. They celebrated my small victories, whether it was a good grade on a test or a successful attempt at a new recipe, and their encouragement began to chip away at the walls I had built around myself. With their support, I found a renewed sense of purpose. My academic performance improved, and I began to excel in school, something I had desperately sought for years. I threw myself into my studies, determined to prove to myself that I was capable of success. My uncle and aunt were my biggest cheerleaders, always there to offer guidance or a word of encouragement when I needed it. They became the family I had always longed for, their love and support unwavering. But even as I thrived in this new environment, I couldn't completely shake the lingering pain of my parents' rejection. It was a constant ache, a reminder of the fractured relationship I had left behind. When I earned a spot at my dream university, it was a milestone I had once thought unreachable. I remember the day I received the acceptance letter, my hands trembling as I read the words. My uncle and aunt were overjoyed, their pride shining in their eyes as they hugged me tightly. But when I called my parents to share the news, their response was lukewarm at best. They offered a brief congratulations, their voices devoid of the excitement I had hoped for. It was a bitter pill to swallow, knowing that my achievements were met with indifference from the very people who were supposed to celebrate them. During family gatherings, their favoritism towards Michael became glaringly obvious. They doted on him, praising his every accomplishment, while my successes were met with little more than a nod. It hurt more than I cared to admit, but I tried to focus on the support I had from my uncle and aunt, reminding myself that their love was enough. After graduating, I built a successful career, purchasing my own home and achieving a level of financial independence that I had once dreamed of. It was a strange feeling, standing in my own living room, surrounded by the life I had built for myself. I had worked so hard to get to this point, and yet there was a part of me that still longed for my parents' approval. In stark contrast, my parents continued to struggle, their lives still engulfed in the chaos and disappointment that had become their norm. They remained fixated on Michael's potential, their hopes and dreams pinned on him. Despite their ongoing favoritism, I found it in my heart to support my brother. When he faced challenges in his business venture, I even invested in him, wanting to help him succeed despite the complicated dynamics of our family. It wasn't easy, but I believed in second chances and the possibility of growth and change. Eventually, I felt the need to confront my parents about the past. I sat down with them one evening, the air thick with tension, as I recounted the pain of feeling inadequate, the hurt of being sent away, and the emotional scars that lingered. The conversation was charged with emotion, each word heavy with years of unspoken grievances. They responded with defensiveness, their voices rising as they tried to justify their actions. But in that moment, I realized I could not change their perspectives. They were stuck in their ways, unable or unwilling to see the damage they had caused. I chose to maintain distance, understanding that sometimes love meant protecting myself from further hurt. It was a difficult decision, but one that brought me a sense of peace. As time went on, I found growth and healing in my new life. My relationship with my uncle and aunt flourished, built on mutual respect and unconditional support. They became my rock, the family I could always count on. I continued to support Michael, but I also learned to prioritize my own well-being. It was a delicate balance, one that allowed me to move forward while acknowledging the past. I embraced my independence, cherishing the relationships that brought me joy, knowing that my journey was just beginning. The scars of my childhood would always be a part of me, but they no longer defined me. I had found my own path, one filled with hope, resilience, and the promise of a brighter future.